Welcome to another Go for Whole podcast. I am Nadine Babu, and I am joined by our resident expert, Daniel House. Welcome, Daniel.
Nadine, we need some football now. We need it right now. I'm ready.
Yes, I think we need it for more reasons than one. Obviously, we've been struggling through this COVID thing for the last couple of months. And I think we'd be remiss in not mentioning the riots in Minneapolis last night and everything else going on. So I think that it's really nice to have an escape and to have sports be that escape. And we really don't have that right now. So obviously, we're wishing everyone safety and health and hoping everyone's okay and justice is served and all of those things. But for now, I think we're just going to hop into talking about some Gopher recruiting and some fun things going on in this world because there aren't that many.
We're going to be escape for a few minutes here today and talk about Gopher football because there's a lot of exciting things going on. I was talking to somebody the other day and I'm like, nothing has really changed for me during the COVID-19 in terms of coverage because every week there's something going on with Gopher football.
Exactly. It's so funny. It's funny because people are like, well, what are you doing with sports and how are you getting your fix? And are you watching replays of things? I'm like, no, I'm like, PJ Fleck is picking up 4-star recruits nonstop. I can hardly keep up.
PJ Fleck's building a historic recruiting class during a pandemic. Like, wow.
There are going to be books and movies written about him. Who do you think should play PJ in a movie?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't even thought about that, Nadine. You got any thoughts on that?
I bet you he's thought about it. I'm trying to think of I know somebody's mentioned someone before.
Somebody has. Yeah, I've heard it too. And I don't remember what it was.
You know what? Actually, tweet us, you guys. Who do you think should play PJ in a movie? Let us know because we want to know this and to start casting it right away.
We need to start casting now before he gets too big and the statue part of everything. And, we gotta do it right now.
Exactly. So let's hop into this last weekend. So it was a huge weekend for recruiting. So when you look at the film of 4-star Chicago OT, Cameron James, what really stands out to you?
Well, phenomenal athlete, being able to land another 4-star offensive tackle. You want to build in the trenches. And I was talking about this in a video that I did recently. They did a nice job of adding talent at the skill spots, but building up front is where you really have to take the next step as a program because of the physicality in the Big Ten. You got to be able to run the ball and be balanced offensively. You saw the benefits of being multidimensional last year, the explosive passing attack, and then when coverage resources were dedicated, they ran into lighter boxes. So looking at what Cam James brings to the table is phenomenal athleticism, thrived when he was pulling in space for runs and screens, getting to the second and the third level. And in the inside and outside zone blocking scheme, you want to have guys that can reach, get to the second and third levels and block very, very well in those areas. So like I said before, finding offensive tackles that fit the athletic profile that you want is so important. And now they have more flexibility than they've had in the past because they don't have to necessarily bring in a guy that's got a developed frame right away that you got to insert and this guy's got to play. Like when PJ got here, he was so limited on the offensive line. Now he can invest in some of these guys that have so much upside and then be perfect scheme fits moving forward. So Cam James, love the chance that he has to be upside developmental player with Brian Callahan. There is so much to love in terms of the traits that he has. Got to get better in pass pro with all the technique, but that's every prospect that's coming in. He's more refined as a run blocker. So getting the hips and the hands together, like the hips are the most important part of being a successful offensive tackle. So that's something that, Brian Callahan works at length with in his system.
Do you think that was one of the big reasons why he decided to come here because of the system and because of Callahan?
Yeah, and I mean, that's a track record going all the way back to Western Michigan. You look at all the players that were drafted on the offensive line. PJ is still working to build up the offensive line, Nadine, because the cupboard was bare when he got here at that position in the spring because they barely had any bodies to play. They had guys graduate. There were injuries. And then finally, over time, he started to build it up to the point of now you have guys that are ready to play right away, and then you can invest in people like Cameron James and players like that for down the road, which is an exciting development.
Absolutely. By the way, I'd like to point out, too, that last weekend was Memorial Day weekend, which you wouldn't typically think of as a top recruiting weekend. But with PJ, it's just an extra day to be able to fit things in, right?
It's an extra day, a holiday with a bang, I guess that it works good.
Literally. So next up, the recruiting haul continued with Jacksonville OT Austin Barber. Love the name Barber. I feel that those really fit well in our system.
Austin Barber, yes.
Yes. How does Barber's skill set differ from other recruits the Gophers have added in the past?
Well, again, I think this meshes with what I said about having different offensive linemen with athletic profiles that are kind of different from one another. So, for example, you got Cameron James, who's 6'7", 280 athlete. Then you bring in a 6'7", 315 offensive tackle that's more developed physically. I look at what he did in the ground game, so physical in that area and a more developed frame than other offensive line prospects that they have in this cycle, like Logan Purcell. Obviously, who needs to add weight and get in the strength and conditioning program, but physical blocking, taking guys out into the second level, finishing blocks. And I also love what I saw. I think some people were a little bit worried about his film. Like, he doesn't look like he's a superb athlete. I had some people tell me that, but seeing him be able to get out in front of a tunnel screen, that's all I needed to see, because he's able to take an adequate angle in the second level and have enough movement skills to get out in front of that play. That's a great barometer to see how much movement that offensive tackle has, is if he can get out in front of that. Pass pros, areas that both of those guys are going to have to continue to get better at, but that's part of being in a college football system, is picking the right developmental program for you that's going to be able to maximize your potential.
Yeah. Now, Daniel, side note here, obviously we're doing this podcast, but if people want more, if they want to see a little bit more, your in-depth analysis, I mean, you have articles up, and where can they find those?
This is all around gopherhole.com. On my Twitter feed, I also had some analysis and videos as well. And I plan to do another kind of video breakdown on these recruits and what we're talking about today, a little bit more in depth.
Also, you guys, if you have video breakdowns that you want Daniel to do, let us know. Tweet us, message us. He's always open to it. Daniel is a workhorse, and like we were talking yesterday, you don't feel like any of this is work because you love it so much.
Oh yeah, there's no work at all. Like, I'll sit down and watch inside zone, outside zone clips. I've been looking at all the games and going back through. I watched Georgia Southern the other day, looking at that crazy game. I'm like, how the heck did that happen? 3rd and 30. Then you got the Demetrius Douglas 2 catches, the Bateman play in space, and then the TD to Johnson. Like, just think if that play doesn't happen last year. The season looks totally different. Those 2 games, Georgia Southern and Fresno State, like improbable plays, but it defined kind of what the season was going to look like, because we knew that this team had that clutch gene that you got to have, and that they were a special group.
Well, and that's the thing. I know people were a little discouraged after those first couple of games, but it's like being able to close out big games is so huge. And I think that really just helped them all season. Plus, it also builds confidence. So you don't win one of those first couple games, and you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and they found ways to win with their backs against the wall. It doesn't get any closer to the wall than being 3rd and 30 backed up and having to go like 90 yards to win the game. I mean, I saw that and I'm like, man, they found a way. Even if it was not exactly how they wanted it to, that leadership's coming back. The returning production on the offense should have people excited about this season. Yeah, there's some question marks on the defense, but they've been recruiting for that. They've been thinking ahead there. So maybe that eases the transition, but you got to be ready to rock right off the start.
Now, Daniel, you've been covering this, since PJ obviously started. So now that you've seen a few of these cycles in recruiting, what are some of the specific traits that staff values on the offensive line?
Well, I would say length is one of the big things. They like to have the big tackles, but also movement skills. Like I said, adequately moving in space, being able to pull out, reach to the second level, the linebackers. And you can get creative with your blocking schemes when you have a lot of athletic offensive linemen. You saw with the outside zone last year how they were able to pair that up with the inside zone. There was a lot of success there. I did a video on that. You can go to YouTube and watch it if you want to learn more about outside zone. But finding the second level defenders, blending in body types, so different toolbox players. I call it the offensive line toolbox. So in 2019, they went with J.J. Godet, 6'7", 260 range. He's up to 310 already. Another example of an athletic player that you have in your system that you develop once he gets here. Then you look at 2020 with Martis Lewis, 6'7", 320. More of a developed frame, but has the excellent movement skills, very athletic, good foot quickness, and solid in pass pro. Then you're looking at someone like Ariante Ursary, 6'5", 295, ultra athletic player, but stood out in the ground game as well. So, you want to mix the skill sets that you have, and you already see that with this class. Like I said, with Cameron James being 6'8", 280. He can continue to add weight to his frame and develop his technique. Logan Purcell from Annandale, Minnesota, 6'5", 6'7", 245 right now. Will get in that strength and conditioning program and add weight. And then Barber being the more developed product at 6'7", 315. So having the blend of skill sets gives you flexibility to have guys be ready to make the physical jump right away. You have the competitive depth now at the offensive line position that you're able to take some of these guys that have upside in athleticism because there's time to invest in them now. You don't have to thrust them into the fire. You don't have to go get those guys immediately because you've been planning ahead. And I think that's what makes PJ Fleck and his staff so talented at recruiting and building a roster, because they know what they need to do for the next 3, 4, 5 years versus just a year. They're planning out, they're thinking ahead how one move can impact the whole depth chart.
Yeah. Going back to what you were mentioning about strength and conditioning, I think we talked about this maybe a year or so ago, but I have noticed that these guys are, they are getting bigger, they're getting stronger, but they also seem to be having less injuries as a whole. I just remember being plagued with injuries for years. What are they doing different?
I just think the training methods that they're using obviously are doing a really good job. And PJ has invested in a lot of different tools. You look at all the mental health resources, the recovery stuff that he's doing. I know the Board of Regents recently approved a donor who gave a cyro chamber, one of those things that you walk into that's 20 below or something like that.
I want to try that.
Muscle recovery. They added that. So they've improved their facilities as well, being able to treat players there and have the resources that they need. I honestly think that played a big role in it. And also PJ Fleck, when he was hired here, he's like, hey, Dan Nichols, strength and conditioning coach, this is the guy that I want to run my strength and conditioning. And he's always said that strength and conditioning coach is the most important hire that you're going to make as a football coach, because it shapes the players that you have. You have to be able to elevate those athletic players like I'm talking about. And you also have to be able to show progress with the players that maybe need to refine their bodies more. So having the new facilities, the right strength and conditioning coach, that's obviously helping them be able to sustain success and keep guys on the field, which is key to success. The healthiest teams at the end of the year are always going to be the most successful.
I feel like PJ doesn't have that old school mentality too of just running these guys into the ground and just torturing them. It's I think he really, he talks about how much he evaluates it. And then when they have a walkthrough practice, and if it's open to the public, he's like, I know that's, a weird practice, but listen, this is what we need to do. And they're monitoring that all to make sure these guys don't hurt themselves and injure themselves and overexert themselves.
That's a great point, because I asked PJ about analytics a while back, and he was talking about how they use player tracking, so they're able to see how much a guy is exerting, the types of things that they're doing on the field, able to track how fast they're running, the exertion that they're putting out, a lot of different variables available through those programs. So that allows you to tailor your practice time, understand what you need to do to push guys maybe a little bit harder, scale it back. That's so important, because wear and tear is something that you can prevent possibly if you have the right numbers and the data and analytics. So maximizing what you have available and getting all of the information that you can to make an informed decision is key in any part of your program.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Going back to recruiting, that was a little tangent there. But what do you think has fueled this recruiting surge?
Nadine, I think recently it's getting players drafted in the NFL. It's so important. You got 5 guys getting picked with Winfield, Johnson, Martin, Coughlin, Williamson, all at different position groups, a lot of them on the defensive side of the ball. But you see all the talent on the team right now that has a chance to play in the NFL. Rashad Bateman's already in the top 10 to 15 conversation next year, maybe the number 2 wideout in the draft. You get attention like that. You see how PJ and his staff have developed players, not just at Minnesota, but dating back to Western Michigan. They have so much to sell there. And when you have guys, they come to programs, they want to have the opportunity to play in the National Football League. That's their goal. They want to be able to elevate their games and go to a program that's not only going to develop them on the field, but off of it as well. I think that's attractive to a lot of players that I've talked with. They say Minnesota's unique, and having College Game Day come to campus and all the fanfare with that, having the program featured and to see how different PJ's approach is, That's been huge. And getting that national exposure last year with an
Mm.
11-2 season. You see Colin Cowherd talking about the Gophers the other day on FS1. Like, I don't think I've seen Colin Cowherd talk about the Gophers before in conversations with Michigan and John Harbaugh. So you're getting that national recognition, you're getting recruits homes, and you're not having to really recruit that because it's just free advertising of the University of Minnesota every single time that something like that happens.
Absolutely. And we're getting the national recognition because we do have a top 10 recruiting class. So we're with
Yeah.
the Ohio States and we're with everybody, and that's the thing. And I mean, at one point we were even 5-6. So that is when those are amongst your peers. Those you should be being talked about on a national level. I think another thing too, and this was actually something Jordan had mentioned in the Last Dance when Dean Smith recommended that he went pro early. And it's like, I think a lot of coaches are selfish because they don't want their best players to go. And PJ's the opposite. He said, we want Antoine Winfield Juniors. We want these guys to develop and go and be successful. And that's a very unselfish attitude that I think is very attractive.
Well, and when you build your program like this and you are planning ahead, you can withstand and guys going pro like that. It's great for your program because NFL draft, you look at Mel Kiper right before the draft on day 3. He's talking about Rashad Bateman and Tanner Morgan being 2 guys on his radar for the 2021 NFL draft. Like, I had to pause for a second and just go, are you serious right now? Like, those 2 guys getting talked about, Gophers players at skill spots. We're talking quarterback, you go all the way back to the 1970s. You haven't had a quarterback like this probably since Sandy Stevens breaking the records and getting this type of accolades and recognition. I haven't seen anything like it. So it's fascinating to see how PJ has turned this program into something that is getting national recognition. And it's showing you, like, the statistics out now of 78% talent utilization, being with LSU and Clemson and Oregon in that category, being number 2 in the nation at best utilizing your talent. It all comes back to player development, Nadine, getting your guys ready to play at the next level and getting the most out of them. And that's what PJ does best. And it resonates with recruits.
The utilization jump is crazy too. I mean, you just look at the improvement year after year, and it's been a steady build. It wasn't like this crazy jump in year 1, year 2, but now you're getting into it, and this is exactly what he was wanting to build.
Yeah, his vision is coming to life. And I told everyone, like, right around now is where you're going to see the program, that the slight talent elevation that you need to just kind of take the program to the next level. And it's going to be exciting to watch. I'm ready to see what they can do.
So speaking of talent, obviously we don't know if we're going to have a season yet. So this is all hypothetical,
Yeah.
But you look at it and realistically, the number one way we come back would be without fans. And one of my friends actually texted me in Europe right now with soccer. I think only 3 out of 22 games have been won on a home field. So how different does that make it? When you go into the horse show, when you go to the big house, when you're going into these huge football schools with 100,000 people in their stadiums, and you can hear a pin drop on 3rd down. Like,
yeah.
That is going to be an even playing field where you don't have that fan base.
Well, it's a great case study for home field advantage. Like, we're going to have data to look at to go, is there really an impact on home field advantage? And how does a crowd impact the game? I mean, I don't know, going into those big stadiums, TCF's a little bit different. It's not as big of a stadium. You go into the shoe and you got 100,000 people there. It's wide open now. It's going to be totally different. But if anybody's going to have them prepared for that, it's PJ. He'll practice in empty stadiums if he has to. Like, he's blaring sound before when I've walked around there. Like, he'll have a plan in place to get those guys ready for that.
Absolutely. So far, what is your favorite aspect of this current recruiting class?
Love what they've done at the defensive back spot. And this comes back to being visionary with recruiting again. You understand that Coney Durr is going to be graduating. Benjamin St. Juste is probably going to go pro. So cornerback is your strength coming into the season. You're building the defense around the perimeter, knowing that you have really solid man type coverage corners on the outside and differing skill sets at the position. So knowing that, that you have to build the cornerback room. Getting Avante Dickerson from Nebraska, one of the top cornerbacks in the nation. Stephen Ortiz Jr., who's Mr. Versatility, he can play in the nickel, he can play safety, he can do a lot of different things in your defense. And Tamarian Crumpley from Ohio. Then you get Darius Green, a safety, who I'm a higher on than a lot of the recruiting services. I think he's got the potential to kind of play a Chris Williamson type of role because of the skill set that he has and the versatility. So you see what they've done at the defensive back position, being able to address that. And then dashing depth. Like I said, it comes back to competitive depth. You're at the point now where you fill the couple needs that you have every year, and then you just dash talent here and there. So it's like wide receiver, offensive tackle. Now defensive end is probably the next step with this class. So what I've noticed is having all of these pieces together, recruiting in a visionary way has helped the Gophers be able to have flexibility recruiting, and they have a plan. They're thinking ahead and building their roster the exact way that PJ Fleck wants to now. So this is where you're really noticing the difference.
Yeah. Now this question is going to be really tough for you because I know this is probably going to be like choosing your favorite pie or sweet or cupcake as a sweets guy. But if you had to pick one current 2021 player as your recruit crush, who would it be?
It's early, Nadine. It's early, but I'm going off the beating path here. Everyone is talking about all the big names, and of course, yeah, they should be. But Devon Williams, a linebacker from Dublin, Ohio, versatility, sideline to sideline range, that change of direction. I watch how he can be used as a blitzer off the edge. He can cover running backs and tight ends up the seam. There's just so many ways that Joe Rossi can maximize a player with that type of athleticism, and he checks all the boxes that I'm looking for: that flexibility, a body control, quick read and react skills, the coverage ability up the seam, like I said, being able to use him in a lot of different ways. Those are the type of players that Joe Rossi loves to add to his defense because he's such a creative guy with his front seven. I was talking about it on Twitter the other day with the NASCAR packages, moving your defensive ends inside and then getting creative with the linebackers that you have. The biggest thing Gopher fans are going to notice over the course of the next 2 years is the speed on defense. They've been recruiting that, wanting to get better there. The linebacker spot in the second level, and then the defensive backs in the third level, there's a lot of speed being added there. And that leaves the door open for Joe Rossi to just throw the cupboard out there of concepts that you can use to maximize player potential. So Devon Williams is someone that Joe Rossi is going to have fun working with.
All right. Remember that name, Gopher fans, because if Daniel House thinks he's good, he's probably good. So I don't think anyone else has probably watched as much film as you have. So you can definitely break that down.
Yeah, I've been diving in, Nadine. Quarantine, I feel like I'm in a big cave. Like today I was watching, the past few days I've been watching LSU's offense. So I've got everything covered right now.
This is almost like a blessing for you. It's like it's a reason to be inside and watching film like 12 hours a day. Like you should have been a football coach because you would have not hated that aspect of it.
Oh, no, I love it. I could sit and do it all day. I love talking with coaches too. It's kind of fun to get their perspective and learn. I love to learn. So this has been a fun time.
I'm with you. I love the stories too. There's nothing I love more than sitting down with somebody that's been a coach and you just hear all these stories that aren't public and you're like, it's literally like a kid in a candy shop. Like I want more and more. Yeah. So what is the next step for rounding out that 2021 recruiting class?
Defensive end and defensive tackle are the next couple spots. Albert Regis decommitted recently, but I'm a fan of Byron Murphy II out of DeSoto, Texas. I see some vibes of Sheldon Richardson. I actually looked at the testing. It was cool because Byron Murphy had his testing metrics from the opening regional on 24/7, which makes my life easier because then I can go and look at athletic testing metrics. And I was like, you know, he kind of gives me Sheldon Richardson vibes, a younger version of him when I was watching his tape and his LinkedIn side. And it's crazy because they have similar measurables. The testing's very, very comparable. So if they can come out of here with Byron Murphy II to fill that defensive tackle spot. And then I also was diving into defensive end Austin Booker from Greenwood, Indiana. Length, quick first step, all the traits that they're looking for at the defensive end position. He reminded me a little bit of a younger Stephen Weatherly, just the way that he was able to be used creatively as a stunter, coming inside off the edge too as well. And he was a real methodical pass rusher. Like he sets up his moves with rips and swims, and then he'll come inside and redirect his rushes. So having a guy like that has a variety of different rushing moves already in the arsenal, that would be a huge get for the Gophers to land two defensive linemen to round out this class. Jake Rotzloff, outside linebacker from Rosemount, Minnesota. We don't know if he's going to play hockey or not. He's a very talented hockey player. I'm not a big hockey guy, but everyone's telling me that this guy has a chance to possibly play in the NHL if he wants to. So we don't know exactly what route he's going to take, but linebacker could be another position that they dress. I think the defense is going to be the key rounding out this class. And you built on the trenches on the offensive line now. Get a couple players on the defensive side of the ball, specifically on the defensive line, because for me, the next step for this team is to be able to get after the quarterback more without blitzing. You saw it against Iowa when you rush 4, rush 3, and you don't get home. You got to start sending blitz pressure. You can't play as much zone, soft underneath stuff. So if you want to take the next step, you got to be able to create more havoc. I think they had a 14% havoc rate last year, which was like 100th in college football. So that's the next step, being able to consistently get pass rush pressure. I look at what they've done on the defensive line in the last couple classes with Rashad Cheney and D'Angelo Carter, and Jamal Teague has been getting valuable experience as well over the past couple of seasons. Micah Treadway comes back and Keontae Shad playing the 3-tech. That could be a position that rises fast next season, and people don't really expect it.
So you mentioned already a decommitment. There have been a couple of those. Do you foresee us seeing a couple more just because these guys are making these choices? I'm sure coaches have a lot of time on their hands. They're blowing up their phones. They're feeling pressure to commit. But also, I mean, as great as the U of M and the Gophers virtual visit is, it's still not like being there. So do you think that we'll see just a lot of decommitting all around this season?
It makes it challenging because of COVID-19 and not being able to take physical visits. So what's going to happen? Are they going to be able to even physically visit yet at the point before National Signing Day occurs? How is National Signing Day impacted by COVID-19? We have no idea what the fall is going to look like. So it could play to a team's advantage too, because they have already built these relationships. They've had a long time to talk with these coaches and discuss their roles and be able to build that relationship rather than coaches being spread a little more thin with spring practices and the preparation for the season. They've been able to still stay in contact with those guys, and the virtual visits have been key. So nationally, I still think it depends upon how the next couple of months play out. If they do take physical visits and guys choose that they want to do that, then that could impact teams nationally, not just at Minnesota, but everywhere across the board.
Sorry, I had been muting my mic because my neighbor is actually building a new driveway. So I didn't want you to hear all the truck noises. But that's what working from home is, right?
Right. It's all natural noises.
Exactly. We do have 2 Twitter questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, what does the extended dead period mean for some recruits who are hoping to get on campus before deciding?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. We don't know exactly what the next couple of months are going to look like. The NCAA has said there's going to be a dead period for a while now. They extended it out. So what does it look like? Are they going to extend it again? If they do, then like I said, you're probably not going to have as many players deciding to go somewhere else. They're just going to say, okay, I can't take a physical visit. I've already built this relationship. You're probably going to have a better shot at retaining those players and not having them go on physical visits. But honestly, the way that the top of this class is built up and the excitement that I see from all of those guys, I don't see Minnesota having an issue keeping people like, Steven Ortiz and all these guys, because they want to play at Minnesota and they're going out. And when you have players that are going out and basically recruiting others to come with them, that's a good sign, because you got people rallying in and they believe in the message.
Absolutely. The next one's a really tough one. How many football wins will we have this season? And do we get Floyd, Axe, and the Jug back?
Well, I tell you, it's very early to be making record predictions, but I'll say this. The next step for the Gophers is to consistently win against Wisconsin and Iowa, and that's going to elevate the program to that next level. Like last season, unbelievable, beating Penn State, all the execution that went into some of the games last year, the preparation, the way that they maximized their talent. The next step, like I said, is maintaining that and maximizing and adding more physicality to be able to compete in the trenches with teams like Iowa and Wisconsin consistently. And if you want to break down another glass wall and put yourself in a conversation that you haven't been in for a while or ever really, that's going to be the key, is starting to win those rivalry games like that.
Wow, this is just a lot of exciting news. It makes me really, really want football. And obviously, there's no indicator if we're going to have that or not. But I feel like just starting to get back and opening restaurants and things like that. I think that it's a couple months away, and it's good timing for us. And with the MLB hopefully starting up and giving testing the waters a little bit, are you hopeful that we're going to see some football this fall?
I'm hopeful that we will. I don't think there'll be fans, and if there are, it's going to be a restriction. There'll be a limited amount. Like Ohio State was talking about 30%, I believe, out of 100,000.
Mhm.
So obviously that's a little bit different in Minnesota because it's not as big of a stadium. So how do each of these schools handle this? What is the Big Ten's approach? Are they all unified? What are other conferences going to do?
Mhm.
I don't know. What do these non-conference games look like? Do they end up playing those, or do they add another conference game if they have some of these smaller schools concerned about things that don't maybe have as big of a budget? I don't know what it's going to look like, but I believe they'll find a way to do it because there's so much at stake. I mean, even if you can play without fans and you have the necessary testing and you feel like it's safe for the players, 75 million you're going to lose if you don't play football at all. So you lose out on that TV revenue. It's like
Mhm.
30 million if you're able to play without fans. So there is definitely
Mhm.
a $45 million incentive to play football.
Well, and keep in mind for the people that are like, well, whatever, it's football. Football actually like funds universities. So it actually funds the non-revenue sports, it funds scholarships, it goes to schools, I mean, all of that is involved in a university. So that's why it's so big. This is one idea that we just were mentioning the other day. But do you think that they could like almost like March Madness, get more stations to broadcast? So you get the True TV, the TBS, everything. So you have every single station showing all the games. And do you think that would be a possibility to make up some of that revenue too?
Well, yeah, market it different, create an experience at home. You got to be careful though, Nadine, because college programs are already trying to figure out how to get people into the stands. And if you
Mm-hmm.
start delivering this product that's incredible at home, you're definitely going to start having people that say, man, I like staying at home watching the games, being able to watch all the games at once. You're playing with fire there. I've said it. I think if they don't play with fans, they should do like a Willy Wonka thing, like a golden ticket. There's like 5 to 10 people that get a golden ticket, some sort of like marketing campaign, and have them spaced out in the stadium. I'd love that as a kid. You get the golden ticket.
I would say that you would apply for that like 100 times for sure.
I would. I'd have been in the newspaper, cutting out the clipping, bringing that in right away.
I love it. Well, we will be keeping you updated. Follow Daniel House NFL. Gopher Hole on Twitter as well. We'll keep you updated with everything that we find out and every next recruit there is. And I just want to thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Nadine.